5, 4, 3, 2, 1, no ar. No ar, pode falar, senhor Joper.
Boa tarde a todos e a todas.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Nós estamos iniciando
We are starting
mais evento da
yet
transição
another event for Brazil Water Week.
me apresentar.
Before introducing myself,
Essa sessão
if
somente
you
em
want to
inglês.
watch
Por
this
favor,
session in
acesse o
English,
link que encontra-se no
please
chat.
follow the link on the
Eu
chat.
sou o Joper Padrão,
My name is
membro
Joper
da
Padrão.
ABES,
I'm a
Associação
member of
Brasileira de
ABES, the Brazilian
Engenharia Ambiental
Association of Sanitary and
e
Environmental
Transformação
Engineering,
Educacional.
and a professional
É com muita
economist.
satisfação que damos continuidade à série de
It's with great satisfaction
Brazil
that
Water Week,
and great pleasure that we start the
realizado
special sessions for Brazil Water Week,
promovido pela ABES,
which is promoted by ABES
evento
and one of the
internacional
most
sobre água
important
e
international
habitação.
events about water in the
As sessões
country.
especiais são gratuitas
The
e
special
abertas a
sessions are
todos
free
e
and open
acontecerão
to the
de
general
hoje
audience
até
and
quinta-feira,
will be
11
happening
horas.
from today to
Você
Thursday.
pode acessar o link do chat para se
You
inscrever
can
para as próximas
follow the
sessões.
link on the chat to register for the
De
next
26
sessions.
a 30 de outubro,
From
nós
October
teremos
26 to
5
October
dias
30,
de Brasil
we will
Water
have
Week,
5 full
com
days
mais
of
de
Brazil
50
Water
horas
Week
de conteúdo
with
online,
more than 50 hours of online content,
especialistas do Brasil
over
e de
100
todos os
experts from
países.
Brazil and other
No
16
site,
countries.
para fazer sua inscrição,
To
há um link
register,
encontrado no chat.
follow the link that is also on the
Queremos dar
chat
de forma
box.
muito especial aos nossos
We'd
patrocinadores.
like to say a special thank you to our sponsors, Sabesp, Bia, Suez, Ana,
A EGEA,
Aegea,
SEDAI
Sedai,
e Guá Saneamento.
and Gua Saneamento.
Esta sessão tem como tema ESG,
The
ESG,
topic of this session is
Social
ESG,
and Governance,
Environmental, Social, and
Sustentabilidade e
Governance,
Estratégias
Sustainable
Integradas.
Leadership, and
Os dois
Integrated
lados da
Strategies,
mesma moeda.
two sides of the
Um
same
desafio
coin.
em que aplicaremos nosso tempo
This is
esta
a
tarde.
challenge where we will be
Tenho
spending our time
convidados
on
muito
this afternoon.
especiais.
We have very special guests
Renomados,
today,
pessoas
renowned
reconhecidas
professionals,
no mercado
people
nacional e
who
fora do país.
are known in the market both in Brazil and abroad.
Cada deles terá
Following the
5
order of
minutos.
presentations, each of them will have approximately 10 minutes.
São
I will
fundador da
start with Ricardo Assumpcao, the
GlobalECO.
founder of Grape GlobalECO.
Em seguida, Eniale
Then we will
Maione,
move on to Eniale Mayon,
executiva da
the
DIA,
executive director of
Supermercado
DIA,
e Universidia.
Supermarkets, and Universidia.
Sucede a Eniale
After
nossa
Eniale,
amada Ione
we will
Anderson,
have our dear
diretora
Ione
de
Anderson.
Política, Parcerias e
She's the
Comunicação
Policy, Communication, and Partnerships Director for
do
the
Global Change
Inter-American
Research,
Institute for Global
Instituto
Change Research,
Interamericano para Pesquisa em Mudanças Globais.
which has a focus on
E,
global change.
fechando com chave de ouro, a
Lastly,
apresentadora será Karine
to end
Bueno,
on a high note, we will have Karine Bueno,
Contabilidade de
the
Santander Brasil,
sustainability head at Santander Brazil
conselheira do
and
Pacto
a
Global.
counselor of the Global Pact.
Feitas as apresentações, vamos
After these
iniciar
introductions,
através de
we
Ricardo,
will start
falando
the
Ricardo, por
presentations with
favor, uma
Ricardo.
introdução de motivação sobre o tema.
So, Ricardo, give your motivational speech on the topic.
Abrindo seu áudio, Ricardo, por favor.
Ricardo, you please unmute yourself.
Agora sim, né?
There we go.
Joper, primeiro agradecer
Joper,
você, agradecer
thank
a
you
loja,
first and foremost. Thank you,
a
Ana
ABES
Paula,
toda por essa
Abis,
primeira
and all
iniciativa
the
que
members
é
of the board for this wonderful
o
initiative
Water
that
Week,
is
que é o
Brazil Water Week.
por ser o mais importante evento da água
As the
do
most important
Brasil, mas de uma
water
forma
event,
geral.
bringing not only the view from Brazil but from other countries, this is something that we really
Quero
need to
agradecer a
have,
todos
and it's a pleasure to be able to participate. I'd like to thank Ione, Karini, and Eniali, who will be in this panel with me.
Joper, eu acho que o Brasil Water Week
Joper, I believe that
trazendo um
Brazil
painel
Water
sobre
Week having a
sustentabilidade
panel on
e sobre
sustainability
decidir um
or
comportamento
about ESG couldn't have come at a better time. The pandemic has shown a spotlight on this topic. To what extent is the world foolproof? So sustainability has come into focus. And we've been hearing a lot on the last few months about ESG. What is ESG? What is sustainable leadership? So I'd like to start my presentation here by explaining what exactly is ESG. ESG is simply a way to measure sustainability in a company. Environment, social, and governance are the three criteria, but this allows the market as a whole to know how are companies doing in terms of sustainability on their non-financial criteria. And this is very important today because society in general has been putting pressure on companies to be more sustainable. If we think about the size of corporations today, which are indeed immense, any movement by them will have a major impact, whether a social impact due to the number of employees or environmental based on the area where they work. This impact is also in the hands of the investors who are funding these companies. And many of these investors, such as BlackRock last year, said, from now on, we will not only look at financial markers, but also non-financial markers. So the finance community has been making a lot of pressure, putting a lot of pressure on companies. The millennials who are part of our generation, not ours, not mine or yours, Joper, or maybe not Karini's and Ione's, but our younger brothers, our sons and daughters, will start getting to leadership positions from 2025. They will be leaders in politics, and they will be the asset managers deciding where to place the money. And they have their personal purposes aligned to their professional purposes, their professional goals. That means that caring for the planet will be more and more an important topic. So it is quite timely to talk about ESG now and how companies have to bring that in. It's not something easy to do, Joper. I think that a lot of people think, oh, this is a hot topic, let's incorporate this. But they see ESG as something that is not strategic, and that does not work. When we talk about bringing sustainability into the company as something that is strategic, that means that the company has a major catalyst for innovation. Sustainability, when a company truly wants to be sustainable, forces the company to find new methods or new processes to do things, new materials. And this forces the company to be more innovative, to act using more technology. This is the world we find ourselves in, the ESG sustainability world. And this is interesting because a lot of people associate sustainability with environmental impact. And that's not a fact. When we look to sustainability, we also have to consider other pressures. Yes, we talk about climate change a lot, but what about gender equality, social equality within companies, the issue of regulations, which is also that is quite strong. Companies have to follow sustainability regulations. So we need to consider several aspects of sustainability, not only the environmental impact. We also need to consider the environmental impact, governance impact, and the social impact. So I was thinking, Joper, what could we talk about on Brazil Water Week regarding sustainability? And there is something that has been fascinating me lately, which is the idea of where is sustainability moving towards? Companies that currently can truly have sustainability as part of their strategy, that can use it as a catalyst for innovation. Where are they going to? What is their future? And I believe in a strategy which is the circular economy. What is circular economy? In our societies, we use what we call a linear economy. We produce, we use, we discard. How many blenders, how many smartphones have we sent off to some place that we don't even know where it is? And circular economy has to change that so that we can produce, use, then disassemble, recycle, and reuse those materials in this self-sustaining, self-feeding loop. And we need lots of innovation for it, and we need to use materials that can be recycled over and over. And why is that so important? Because year on year, we have been using Earth's natural resources in a way that we haven't been really considering. I'll tell you, if we had an annual quota of natural resources that we could use, in 2020 we ran out of the quota in August. From that point on, we're on overdraft. So we're going beyond what we can do. So we are at a point today where, more than needing to have a circular economy to minimize that impact, we need to regenerate these natural resources. Then a lot of people ask me, what about water? Can we talk about circular economy with water? And yes, we can say a lot about that. And water is a very interesting paradox. Water is the natural resource that we have the most on the planet, but it's also the resource that we are at a risk of not having. It's interesting. We hear about the SDGs, the Sustainable Development Goals. SDG 6 is about water, and this is a simple piece of data. But if we don't do anything by 2030, we will suffer from chronic lack of water in the country. So we need to start caring for that from now on. And it's interesting because Leonardo da Vinci used to write about this paradox of water. There's a lot of it, but we're also going to run out of it. And this is interesting because water, which is the same water we had back when the dinosaurs were on Earth, when it comes to sanitation specifically, it is at two ends. We have a strategy today that is partly linear and partly strategic. We capture it from well springs, it goes into the sewers, we treat the sewers, and we use as reuse water. And what I'd like to tell you is that there are some things that are very interesting that have been happening throughout the world when it comes to the water circular economy. We know a lot of national universe, but I'll go beyond Brazil and tell you about 3 initiatives very briefly to show how sustainability, when it is integrated into company strategies, can be a catalyst for innovation, and how we can often have simple, adequate solutions. And to every ecosystem where we're in. A very interesting initiative is in Kenya. And Kenya in 2016 suffered from chronic lack of water, and they went through a very difficult crisis. And then a man created Sanovation, which is sanitation and innovation. What did he do? At Sanovation, they took the poorest regions that had no sanitation. They put toilets there that people could use, and once a week they would use a cesspit to drain the wastewater, and they would take it to a treatment station that would dry it using photovoltaic cells, so solar energy, and they created a process to turn the fecal matter into a sustainable carbon, sustainable charcoal. Every kilogram of it saved 80 trees, that is, trees that would be still standing instead of being cut down. And it generated a lot more heat than common coal. This coal started to be used in the entire region, where they would collect the fecal matter to turn into charcoal. They would also take it back. Part would be donated, part would be sold. And this shows how you can have circular economy in a very simple way. Another point that is not quite as simple. Bill Gates himself. Bill Gates in Senegal created the omniprocessor. What does the omniprocessor do? It transforms sludge into energy. So same idea, circular economy. We do not lose anything, we regenerate. And you can see I gave you 2 examples. One a very simple place, and one in a place where sorry, I gave two very simple examples of very poor places, and now I'll give you another sustainability example in places that are not suffering with poverty or are not under a lack of resources. If we think about Orange County in California, they have a chronic issue with water as well.
eles fizeram um negócio muito interessante.
They did something very interesting.
Criou um sistema de irrigação
We created an irrigation system, bringing water from places that are over 500 kilometers,
usar a água residual.
and they thought, why not to use the
E foi isso que eles
reuse water to drink?
criaram
And that's what they did,
processo de negócio muito grande,
using a process with ultrafiltration membranes and UV filters to turn residual waters into the water molecules, H2O, as pure as possible, and to allow that water to be drinkable. And I had the opportunity to drink it. Then we go into a cultural problem, which is to what extent are people willing to do that? On the other hand, if we explain to people that in some way we can no longer have water down the road, we might have a way to work through this culturally and helping people understand how important it is to take care of water so that we won't have a lack of it. There's also something very interesting in Singapore because they also reuse water there as drinking water. And they had an immense campaign saying that water can also be recycled. And the campaign was drink recycled water. You would find posters on bus stops, on companies. So this is a very important line of work in circular economy. Sorry, Joper, I'm not paying attention to my time. I don't know how much time I still have left.
mas você está no mudo. Mas
You're muted.
eu vou
No problem.
Você está no ponto de fazer a sua conclusão.
You're at the point to end it, to give your conclusions.
era pouco essa, de mostrar
So this is my takeaway. I'd like to show you. First, people need to understand what is ESG. We will talk about it a lot, and it's the main challenge of the 21st century. We will hear about it more and more. And then we will show how the circular economy, we need to look ahead to sustainability and how it can bear very important fruits, not only to companies, but to society as a whole. Moreover, it can create positive social impacts, and generate profits. I'd like to thank you all very much for the opportunity, and the floor is yours, Joper. Thank you, Ricardo. Great contribution as usual.
Fundador da Grape GlobalECO,
Founder of Grape Global App,
destaco na sua fala
and I would like to highlight a point in your speech when you speak about the cultural aspect, especially people's relation of drinking recycled water, so to speak. What am I drinking at this very moment?
sessão com meu
Here's me at my session with my glass of water.
pela cidade.
This water was produced by Sedaya here in Rio.
Eu estou bebendo
So the source is originally fully polluted.
claro que
So I'm actually drinking rich water shortly. That's our reality in major urban centers. Now let's pass the floor to our dear Ione Anderson.
está ingressando em nossa sala por problemas
Ione,
técnicos ainda não.
the other speaker is still joining us, so we're gonna move on. Ione, my own is actually Ione Anderson.
Diretora de política
She
para
directs
comunicação
partnership and communication at Inter-American Institute for Global Change Research. So, Ione, you have the floor. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Joper. Thank you to all other panelists. Ricardo, thank you for being such a great opportunity to discuss this topic, to speak about ESGs. And I'd like to highlight that during my share in this discussion, what I'd like to highlight is that we are carrying out this webinar as part of a communication, IT, and social engagement. So you see, I'd say this is the foundation because communication is indeed the base for raising awareness to everything that Ricardo mentioned very well, by the way, especially when he brings examples from different countries and examples we have from our country as well, in Brazil. I'd like to focus my talk in three different points. Those 3 points are more connected to my own experience, to my direct work. So I'd like to touch about the importance of scientific communication is to improve business and scientific community exchange of information and society as well. This is a very important point because science is the basis, the foundation for everything we know, and why we're having this conversation. My point number two that I would like to speak more about is transdisciplinarity and the communicate and the collaboration within science, as in the understanding of how to have research capacity building that can actually interconnect several factors, not only water. Surely we're talking about biodiversity, about water health. All of them actually connect. And I believe that we don't have much of this concept, and I see that in my daily work, in my daily life. So I think science is seen as a separate pillar kind of thing. So the research or scientific work, I interface a lot with scientific procedures and politics and public sector. And there is a number of difficulties that we shall call challenges, which is how to translate science to government, to administrations. And my third and last point is the importance how to ESGs and different metrics. ESGs, metrics and indicators, they correlate. People actually mix those terms. It's a bit of the acronym confusion, we call it, because how those letters relates to other SDGs, ESGs, like Ricardo has mentioned and exemplified so well. ESGs, and he spoke about, and the Global Sustainable Goals, because we have the 2030 agenda, that is uh, major milestones that different countries agreed upon to measure development so that we have sustainable development. And the sustainable development actually encompasses social factors, poverty, education, and the environment. Also, gender interpretation and greater participation of women, mainly. That is something that we have been paying close attention to when it comes to social factors. So basically, and I highlight that amongst raising awareness and communication factors, those 3 points really. And I'd like to focus my attention now to some other story. Recently, 2 weeks ago, I got to watch a Netflix documentary about a planet, and there were beautiful footage. And at 93, the documentarist gave a lot of testimony, and the documentary on Netflix made very clear that we don't change our behavior. Not only the world is at stake, but also our survival. There is, I think decision makers are actually aware, and the new generation people are aware. Like Ricardo said, people actually have woken up to this. But how can we integrate all this? How can we, at the same time, make the best use of this pandemic that rose a number of questions that made our vulnerability more acknowledgeable, and um, sustainability aspects for ecosystems and opportunities for collaborations, for partnerships. How can we make best use and harness this moment to indeed put into practice, actually putting act on business aspects? I think Karine and Yali will be able to speak further about this, how they've been conducting this work at the bank at Santander and other avenues. They've been doing incredible work. But how does scientific knowledge, how can science, ideally, mind you, that within a discussion, transdisciplinary discussion, multidisciplinary discussion that would encompass not only scientists, but also other stakeholders in this very same conversation. Question is, how can this take place? How can this science make its contribution? And for better understanding too, for actions that are actually based in data, evidence-based decisions, really. I work with several scientists who are incredibly active in our reports too, including the AR6, which is the IPCC sixth report, ITBs too. These reports focus more on ecosystems and biodiversity. So what I see is that how their contribution can generate this knowledge that is so rich, so amazing, and how much this difficulty to translate this knowledge to governments, to companies, to society as a whole, so that we can have this better connection. And as an example, to my number one point that I mentioned about the importance of education and communication, and also capacity building of people, we produced in 2016 the one virtual course about the impacts of global changes and in Latin America. This course was a low cost course. From the production side, it was very easy. It was a course that indeed we had to count on scientific voluntary participation for teaching the modules. And we have over 11,000 attendees with very little marketing efforts. 11,000, especially for Latin America. And what surprised me greatly, and what really I was really impressed, is that a lot of people since the beginning, attendance. Mind you, the course was fully conducted in Spanish so that we could reach a larger Latin American audience. But this course, we don't have it. You don't get a certificate. It's not really anything special in terms of certification, but it really caught the interest of people from different social uh, levels. And we got many thank you letters from people that we never expected, that we never thought they would be interested in science. So I'll give you an example. We had municipal guards there was one municipal guard from Bolivia that would join an internet cafe to see and learn about the course. So we see people interested, they want to understand, they want to learn about what is impacting their lives. Usually that is stays to scientists, really, for people who have access to information in English, for example. So it is very important to acknowledge, I would say, that we see there is a space for spreading science, for better understanding, for better awareness, so that we can really transform mindsets, really transform how we see the world, what the product that you consume and your relationship with the environment, with the planet, with social actions of the company, how you can support them, how you can support a company and demand investments and make demands from companies. Things that you can, so that you will realize that you have this knowledge, this role in society as a whole. This is your responsibility too. Is not only corporate social responsibility, it's also personal individual responsibility. And this is the question always posed: sustainability and responsibility. Who's accountable for that? Who are? People won't realize really of this amazing opportunity what it means to have greater participation, of being able to feel that you are part of the decision making process, to feel empowered, to have your voice heard in a space that means in a place that basically means to understand the environment. For example, where does water come from? What is its relate? How does it relate to your healthcare, to sanitation, to biodiversity, with circular economy, etc. So you see, I believe I have gone over my time. Actually, I don't know how much time I have, but still, I just wanted to emphasize how important communication is, how awareness is important at an incredible point in time. This is a discussion that I constantly have with Ricardo and other colleagues. This is indeed the right moment to make the best. Everybody's home. We don't need to move around that much. So let's make best use of this space to dream a bit. Just like I did when I watched the not David Edinburgh uh, Netflix documentary. It is all part of the planet where we're all part of. And thanks to this ESG's discussion driver, really, we can actually bridge development, best practices from corporate, from business sides, and have this relationship between different indicators for sustainable development. I believe they are the future. They are how we're going to get this done together. This is how science is moving to a more transdisciplinary kind of approach to improve the interconnection of these different motors and in causes and impacts from different challenges that we have. Because issues did not acknowledge frontiers, really, national territories, or something. The old transnational, international. We don't speak about climate change from our countryside. We have already deals in place, agreements in place that is the result of years and decades. We have the Paris Agreement. Everybody knows that to get rid of carbon is the way, and how that is impacting everybody's life. We see fires everywhere. We see the pandemic. We see several things that really makes us acknowledge the importance of this topic and biodiversity. I'd say now we're moving to a conference next year that has indeed the opportunity to explore this further. Means better participation, better involvement, connectivity between our areas that, and I think I've gone over my time. I'd like to pass the floor, and I look forward to hear from my colleagues. I'd like to also notice that we had 3 women in the panel. Look, my fan inside is very acute, very acute, very much awakened. Thank you for your words, Ione. Very inspiring. You actually add and highlight science value in what we're doing. And while you were talking, I remembered Marcelo Glazer, a man of science, who got Templeton Award, who was awarded by the Templeton Award recently. And he's a scientist who tried to demystify scientific narratives, meaning try to make science available and accessible to the common people. And also reminded me ABES Goiás Congress back in the 80s, me plus other intellectuals. I was the only one non-intellectual of the four in the group, but this day in the Congress, we spoke about environment and sanitation, human rights in 10 different points. And what we said was once we pass this in an assembly, there will become a message from ABES that to this day you can find it on our website. It's fine to write 10-piece human rights claim, but 4 men writing an introduction, for sober men takes 5 days to write the intro to the 10 points. And it says, I quote, man is part of nature, have the right to. So I think this is a challenge. And what you said really reminded me, saying man not as a ruler, a dominant piece, but a part integrant, like stones and plants and animals. Everything that composes this amazing life. Thank you, Ione and Anderson, for Ricardo. We have some already some manifestations, some references back to what you said. Now let's pass the floor to Eniale, who managed to join us.
After facing many technical challenges, we have Eniali Mayon with us, the executive director of GIA, the supermarkets in Universidade. Eniali, the floor is all yours. Hi everyone, good afternoon. I swear that this time it was not on my side that I had a technical issue. I promise this was not my fault. I swear to God. Okay? I usually take the fault, take the blame with technology. With the kids is the same. I'm always the last one to know. I'd like to talk to you about a few of the initiatives that GIA Group has when it comes to ESG topics. We call we we call it ESG in Portuguese as well, and I'll explain to you why. I'd like to thank all of you who are here so involved with this topic. This is very heartening to me. I'd like to tell you about some of our partnerships and our initiatives, and I'll end with University. I'll promise I'll try to go fast. And Ricardo is involved with us in some of our production of content. This is work that has fast response and appeared during the pandemic. This is kind of a palliative measure for some actions, together with other initiatives that are for longer term, more sustainable. But this was a way so we could work with families. Due to the partnership with the state government, with the market, we can get to families quite fast, to people who really need it at a very difficult moment. So this is one of the initiatives. We also have some work that we're starting just now, and I'd like to share with you, which is when we think about the value chain from the farmer to the display at the supermarket. We work with many Brazilians. We have our own white label, Dia Hoje. We have our largest participation of our own brand. And we focus on consumers that are closer to communities. And our key audience is not in privileged neighborhoods. So it's interesting to think about the value chain, starting with the farmer, going through the entirety of our chain, and understanding the consumer from the packaging. We were talking earlier, right, Karina, about what is the consumer want? What are they asking for? In addition to our consumers are not quite as connected to the sustainability topic, but they were paying attention to packaging, for example. For example, cold cuts in styrofoam packaging. People are complaining about that, especially younger people. They still see styrofoam as a major villain. We already have some precautions, but we're still far from where we want to get to. We have an interesting project where we have hubs. We call them FLV, fruits, legumes, and vegetables. What do we want to do? In the countryside, Dia Supermarket got to the city. For farmers are sure that they will have more demand, which is great for these farmers, for them to have access to credit. So it's a whole chain of value to generate value until we get to the end consumer. So over time we get to do it, and we want to do it more and more. I really want to have what we have with the QR code, to have the whole story from the farmer, and so our kids could understand where things come from, where are they going to, and what are the processes along the way. And maybe have a direct connection with the topic of water or other natural resource or something. So we have a number of interesting initiatives based on the hubs from the value chain. A third topic I'd like to talk to with you, just on an overview, maybe at a later point we can go deeper in, is what we call Universidia. We still have not a brick and mortar inauguration. We'll still will have it, but we are already building. But due to the pandemic, it's a little delay. But Universidia was supposed to have been inaugurated with in-person training, both with employees and non-employees. Due to the pandemic, we started doing everything online. So it's easy to do in-house, but when you talk about the external audience, which is what I want to discuss with you, things get a little more complex. What is the idea behind Universidia? As just like any corporate university, as like with any other corporation, but we want to bring along social transformation based on retail. So we want to, first and foremost, we want to have Universidia as the main focus for training in retail in Brazil, but not only for GIA. We want to have different campi. GIA currently is well spread. We have the largest capillarity in the state of São Paulo, at least, and in the state of Minas Gerais. So what can we do? We can take young people from the communities that are close to us, who have little or no education, and take them to study. Usually the university is on the second floor of our stores, and while the stores are open, there will be theoretical classes, and as soon as the store is closed, we can go down and do the training within a supermarket store. So just imagine having vocational education, and you are having a retail course, and you're being trained in a supermarket. With this, our idea is to create a group, a database so we can have all the best employees, and we can get them working immediately. We know that the turnover in retail is high. It's usually the first job. So people start working in retail at a supermarket, then they move to other jobs. I think this is our social responsibility. We train young people, they start working with us, they start on their first job, but then they move on to shops, to offices. But think about this, what if they come work with us and they already learn a little bit about management, about behavior, service? This is a great path where they will be able to have an entrepreneurial point of view. Families that have a high dropout rate in schools, we have young people who are a little bit older. You can have we have them working at GIA or any other retail store. So this is the way we saw education being the way from a sustainable point of view where we can have social transformation close to our stores. So these were the initiatives I wanted to bring forth today. I think they are related to it. It's not quite a direct connection to Water Week, but I still think it's a way when we talk about the sustainability aspect and governance. I think this has an impact on everybody because everybody has been to the supermarket before. So that's it, Joper. If you have any questions, feel free to ask. Karine, Ione, Ricardo, if you want to ask anything, I'm available. And Ali, this was great. Let's say the message you're bringing from your initiative, this business initiative, is very important for our society. I was not aware of the work you're doing. I just learned about it recently from you, and I find it incredible. Oh, we're just getting started. We will do a lot. The pandemic set us behind a little bit, but you will still hear a lot from us. While we wait to start with Karine Bueno, I'd like to suggest that people who are with us, we have hundreds of participants watching, please send your messages on chat so that after Karina's speech, we can move forward with the questions and the comments that might have been made on chat. So now we will hear Karine Bueno. She's the sustainability head at Santander, Brazil. She's a council member of Global Pacto SX. SX, exactly. Please let people learn about it from you, not me. The floor is yours. Can you hear me well? Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here with you. I think the topic of water, not only here at Santander, I have to wear two hats. I have to talk about a council member and from Santander. We've mentioned it from several moments, and I have to talk about the sustainability manager at Santander. The topic of water is becoming more and more relevant for us, and when we think about water, sanitation, but not only Brazil, but the world as a whole, it has an impact on all levels, whether it's when we're talking about environmental impacts. Ricardo said it very well. We need to think about regeneration. How can we take care of this asset that we have? We have so much of it, it seems that like it will never end, but we know that we have water crises. They have happened and they will continue happening. So the environmental issue, the social issue, several studies discussing it, how the lack of access to high quality water, to high quality sanitation also has an impact in health and employment. And there's a study that shows the different level of salary due to lack of access to water, and the economic issues, whether we're talking about people or small businesses, large businesses. We had a water crisis, I think, in 2014 here in São Paulo, and we saw that from the perspective of banks. How companies that are now prepared are affected by it. We talk to stores, to markets. We also have stores. We have our branches there, brick and mortar locations. So we have a microcredit operation as well in Brazil, microfinance. And we have the business owner. A woman that has her salon but can't do hair because she can't wash her clients' heads. So this connects to the Brazilian society, and it connects us in several different dimensions in our life. And I think that the pandemic has shown this. I think that the pandemic makes it more vivid how access to water or lack of access to water also creates a difference in terms of healthcare conditions, in terms of access. And these are the basic issues of hygiene. So water is actually a very precious resource, very dear to Santander. I'd like to tell you what we do, but I'd like to tell you a little bit about the Global Pact. When we talk about the SDGs, the Sustainable Development Goals, they are ratified by 193 countries. Brazil is one of them. So they have 17 goals that create a global agenda for development up to 2030. It was established 5 years ago in 2015, and we say there's still 10 years, we still have 10 years. And it's a very clear agenda, whether it's at the state level, at a country level, but businesses and companies in the Global Compact intends to do that. We need to take the SDGs as goals and understand what are the contributions we can provide. I think the SDGs create a business perspective, and then we have the Pact, which is a platform that here unites many companies that have signed it, and looking at the role that we have to reach the goals. And we're saying we're getting there, we still have 10 years. So SDG 6, for example, discuss water and sanitation, the issue of sanitation, restoration. And once more, when it comes to the Global Pact for the Environment with this platform, one of the main areas is water and sanitation. We have main large companies in Brazil that are looking towards solutions. They are cooperating in joint actions in moving this agenda forward. If you're not familiar with the SDG agenda, they are the Sustainable Development Goals. Google them. Both as individuals, the role of science translated, but we as individuals, government, companies, we need to connect to this greater agenda. When we look to the private sector, Ione I've already sent a WhatsApp message for about 3 or 4 people. Oh, we need to talk to Ione. When we look to the private sector, what do we think as Santander? How do we see this? What have we been seeing? We've been happy to see there's a great movement in the business sector when it comes to sustainability. I think Ricardo also mentioned. We talk about the BlackRock, the issue of investments, and I think the pandemic has highlighted, has put a spotlight in the responsibility of each company, the responsibilities of the production sector as a whole. So when we look from the perspective of Santander, how do we see our responsibility, our participation? So we always consider 3 axes here. And I'll talk specifically about the issue of water, but we also consider the responsibility we have in-house when it comes to management. We work with the sustainability topic. We've been working with it for over 16 years. We started in 2002, so 18 years that we have a sustainability agenda. Always keeping in mind how these issues are connected to the business. It's not something that is separate. We are a company, we are part of a society, of ecosystem. Our employees, we are part of society. So what is the society we'd like to build? We need to see what is the scenario, what is the environment we're living in. So this is a portion of the in-house management. Since 2010, we offset all emissions. We want to use renewables up to 2025. We had a major movement talking about the cultural issues of eliminating single-use plastics. So all buildings, and the implementation has been delayed by the pandemic, but we'll do that in all branches. This is very interesting. You get to an element where people cannot use plastic cup. There are people who love it, who think this is great, and you have people that are still complaining after almost 2 years, but they're quite few in number. But we need to be a butter in a certain way. When we talk about cultural changes, there is a certain pressure to leave your comfort zone, try to change habits. So when it comes to our management, we have our responsibility, such as centralized control, and when it comes to water, we have several points of control, mechanisms for reducing consumption and so on, and we follow it monthly. We measure all indicators and we measure per 1,000 clients. So not only the consumptions, but the relative consumption. So last year we decreased by 3.2%. So there are places we grow a little or decrease a little, but we follow it. So when we come to the pillars, the risk management, we have a part of the business that looks to risk management. We have several clients. We have small clients with microcredit. We have large multinational companies. So we have a whole ecosystem of the private sector and individuals that are related to the bank. So when it comes to risk management and risk procedures, we have a very well consolidated area when social environmental risk. And when it comes to social environmental risk, we have sectors where we need to have the analysis company by company. And when it comes to the issue of water, I think since 2013, 2014, water becomes an even more important topic. We have developed several methodologies. We did stress testing with our portfolio for financing, and we start adding it into the methodologies. In the point of view of risk, this is a growing issue. So we bring that into our risk assessment. And the third part, which is business development. When I talked to Eniali, when I said that as soon as I'm done, I'm going to call Eniali, this is exactly what you said. How can we, as a financial agent and partner of our clients, how can we help them do this transition? We have a portfolio which we call socio-environmental businesses that has focused on 4 topics. One is infrastructure, so renewable and sanitation, sustainable agriculture, social impact, and financial inclusion. So for each one of them, we work with the business areas to develop products and to help clients make this transition. And last year in this portfolio, we we made available 13.6 billion reais. So there are several different financial instruments that we have to do that. But this is the idea, understanding with the client what is important when we're looking at social issues, environmental issues. Water is a very important component here. What are the changes we need to do? And how can we, as a financial agent, help clients do that? There's an example I love. This year, if we think about it, we're also talking about a pandemic. We saw a growing number of companies looking to the ESG agenda. The name changes, but at the end of the day, the idea is what is the responsibility you have? How can you actively work towards an agenda for a better environment, better economy? The names change over time, but we're still talking about the same thing. And we had a great year from the perspective of ESG businesses and a greater interest both from clients and investors. And we started making a few changes. We said that interloan days, which is loans where I say to the client, okay, what are the environmental or government or social indicators that will be connected to your business? And if they meet those goals, they get a better price for the loan. We have been doing some of this with some of the bigger companies. It's difficult to do this in retail because this is a direct exchange. And one of them specifically, which I really like, is a cooperative group, and they want to recover streams. So we are having a different price for it for those who are part of this cooperative group. So I think we have been put in this group and larger lines. We have a line of 5 billion reais for water and sanitation projects. So these are other projects that are also quite active. So we need to see that there are opportunities. When we talk about the 2030 opportunity and the impact, we need to have opportunities. Which is Better Business, Better World, for example. It has $12 trillion in opportunities in the 2030 Agenda 2030. So from the point of view of the financial sector, this is not only an issue of responsibility, but also an idea of business. And we need to be side by side with the client to help them make this transition. Thank you, Joper. My dear Karini, that was a very valuable contribution. But it had to be coming from Santander. But truly, it is quite important to understand how we in the financial sector can motivate, whether through business or as an agent of transformation in society. When we have the opportunity to talk to you the last day, and pension funds, they invest in the market as a whole. And one of the issues that I would ask to this executive in the pension fund was to learn not what is the most profitable investment. That was important, of course, but to learn what types of investments were being made that would provide profitability that we would like to have.
And this combination was very favorable because it was a pension fund connected to a sanitation company. It couldn't be different. These investments would have to be made with a sustainability outlook, especially when it comes to water resource management. The other point I would like to highlight from what you said is ABES formation. The last Congress that we had, Rio Water Week, which was one of the first initiatives that we have had related to water on Rio Water Week. We completely banished water plastic container that are very common actually in major events, and with a bit of a higher investment, but with great return on our investment, to have people filling up their own recyclable bottles in water fountains. That helps not only the common citizen with nature, but also the executive sector that makes us, through their activities, to have uh, people as agents, as drivers that change society. Now, we have had several comments, several remarks. José Nelson Almeida Machado, so good to be with you and hear from you.
Satisfação de estar conosco.
It is indeed a pleasure to have you.
Da
I
Eniale,
also would like to say to our dear Eniali, for those
dela é
who
Eniale.
are curious, why is she called
Contrário,
Niali?
Eniale. Então,
It is
por
her
isso,
name, is the mirror reflection of her name,
diz Dia
which is
Brasil,
Elaine.
quem pertencer. Que bacana, né?
Also,
E tem
very
uma
nice
pergunta aqui, eu
to
vou
hear.
colocar o
There's a question here.
Ricardo, que eu vou
Dear
dividir em dois.
Ricardo, I'm going to address the question to you.
Rayana Araújo.
Question from
Como está a
Liana
situação do
Araújo.
Brasil em
She's asking
ESG
about
em relação
Brazil's
a outros países? Entendeu a
circumstance,
resposta, Ricardo?
Brazil's ESGs in comparison to other countries. What's our benchmark? Listen, I don't have an answer, I have a hypothesis. We don't have an objective response to that. ESG, it's something that the whole world is talking about, not only us. Regulations in Europe are more advanced than in Brazil. What does that mean? The companies there are trying to get to a positive impact kind of result. Here in Brazil, what happens? We have federal administration that ignores some issues such as global warming, and that really makes our image much harder abroad. So when you have to compete with sustainability, we're a bit behind because we got to compete people that Brazil is a very safe environment, that Brazil is concerned with regulation, that the federal administration will not get in the way when it comes to this kind of thing. So maybe then possibly we'll have a positive scenario. What do I see? Okay. A major amount of companies, of major size companies, concerned with sustainability, with ESG, and several of these pressures come from the finance market. Financial market does put a lot of pressure to help their financial indicators because they're closely connected to reputation. Because the financial report, the the financial market shows the future. The financial report shows the past. So I see growth potential. Like Karina mentioned, all loans connected to sustainability goals tend to grow. Today they're connected, they're bound to major enterprises, but as we see, as time goes by, it will be feasible to smaller companies. Now, when it comes to sustainability, we see a concern beginning so that so the enterprises become more competitive. Because when you speak about supply chain, added value supply chain, that's what it is. Because I'm part of their added value, so I'm part of their supply chain. So whatever one does touches everybody else's activities. So what Inyali said before. So the one company I work with that I have very close connection with is what usually say is the board of directors has to have that on the table, has to be the board. It's useless just to speak lip service and say, yes, I'm sustainable. So you really has to be pulsing, has to be driving. So when you speak about local ecosystems, is what I say, it's the biggest value tool that can be created. So you can operate in a place integrating all stakeholders, meaning employees, agribusiness, small producers, farmers, growers, because agribusiness, unfortunately, have additional pressure when we speak of sustainability because we're used to soy, soybean really takes over everything. Agribusiness is a major supply chain all the way to food because they have their own brand. They sell coffee, for example. Coffee starts with farming, growing. So the agenda is quite positive. Imbalance is positive, but this answer is a hypothesis and it will be clear in 2 years. I was thinking when you were speaking, can I actually make a comment? I think this is a very interesting moment because it goes through bank, goes through everything you're mentioning, connects all the dots, retailer industry. And I think today more and more it's useless to have just beautiful values. Brands will survive due to the actions, to the impact that they want to bring to society, and they have to be clear about it. So thinking that our premium market, maybe people don't know, but water class C's and D, everybody's ready.
Karine também compra. É para quem
So
precisa para barato.
those are for those who want to pay little and are convinced to pay little. But when it's not a premium supermarket, today we need to start speaking of sustainability because before this was very restricted. It was something like a premium kind of supermarket would connect and do things. Things are not like that anymore. Speaker is on mute. Translation would like to warn everybody that the speaker is actually on mute.
A gente é uma empresa espanhola. Aí o que acontece? Estão me ouvindo bem ou não?
Então, Ione, Sônia Nogueira.
Hi, Ione. So when Ricardo spoke previously, he mentioned that one comment. I agree fully with our speaker. We have to invest in rational use of water, and it comes to technology plus educational campaigns and awareness. In your talk, you spoke about science.
Como você vê essa possibilidade de campanhas educacionais e de sensibilização? Por favor, Ione.
How do you see this campaign?
Obrigada, Joper. Obrigada pela pergunta. Antes de responder essa pergunta, a pergunta anterior que
The previous question,
o Ricardo sobre como ele vê
it's been very clear how he sees Brazil's scenario in comparison to other countries. I just want to highlight, we saw with the different ministries, economic ministries and central bank presence, the open letter that spoke about recovering Brazilian economy in a sustainability manner, environmental sustainable manner. That letter, that open letter, was a very important moment. So I think we need to, like we said before, from before the Universidia, for example, all of these actions will be super important because education is not just something you get from school. It is the companies and the companies that want to educate, that want to bring awareness. So that are absolutely important. And I would say, and I would see as an opportunity to all sectors to invest in education.
Based on the data we already have and based on the actions for governance and risk management and all the risks that companies are facing and maintaining based on that scientific data as well. Thank you, Ione. Thank you very much. Fausto Bessa from the association from the War School graduates. I'd like to say, I'd like to convey to Eniali that she's completely right with what she's doing with Universidia. That is the view of sustainability. That was the topic of my thesis at the War School years and years ago. I think Eniali has left us. I think she had an issue with her connection. In the meantime, we have other comments here I'd like to read. Denis Leocadio, she's asking, how can we work with raising awareness of rational use of water in locations where we have a great abundance of it. In some places, it's a cultural aspect combined with the low level of education with people. This makes a challenge. Who would like to answer that? Karine, Ricardo, or Ione? You want to speak, Ricardo? I think there is a cultural issue that goes beyond the income. I agree with some aspect of it, but what we see from the experience of the bank is that we not only need to repeat the message, and we're talking as a company, we need to have some attitudes, some guidances and structures that push the person to change little by little and to change their behavior. So we can have a lot of self communication, but we also need to give a little push in terms of structure, what we offer, and what is valued within.
Bacana, Karine. E ainda
Thank you,
você
Karine.
está com a palavra?
You have the floor still. Carta Pagnini saying, excellent example from Santander. Congratulations to everybody involved, and I hope it's an example to other financial institutions. Sebastian, a great friend, he says, banks don't have to do this. Wouldn't it be a good practice? Shouldn't be a good practice instead of being an obligation? I think it's interesting, but quite intriguing. Listen, I think in Brazil is something that very few people know about. Through central bank, since 2014, there is 437, which is social environmental responsibility. So we do have regulation that says by regulation matters is actually based on regulation. In Brazil, you need to have social environmental liability risks. You need to look at you're accountable. You have to be accountable for your actions as a bank. So regulation gives you the basis. But what I think it's interesting is how can we go way beyond? So when we actually work on social risk and we think about other tools about water, and when we have a positive agenda, it is very interesting. I would say all Brazilian banks have to fulfill 4327, fulfill a
Bacana,
central
bacana.
bank
Obrigado, Karine. Bom, já
standards,
estamos avançados da nossa
a
aula,
rule.
aproximando do final da nossa
Our
E antes
session
de
is nearly
encerrar,
finished now.
gostaria de lembrar querido amigo
I
nosso,
just want to remind you, our dear friend and associate, actually from
Haroldo
Rio,
Matos de Lemos,
Haroldo Matos Lenos,
para o
one of the main names for the world that Brazil
estamos tratando
offers
hoje.
about this topic we're dealing with. And Haroldo, in many of his lessons, he usually asks the following question: what is best, have coffee in a china,
Num copinho plástico
porcelain,
descartável.
or in a disposable
E a resposta
plastic cup?
a esta pergunta,
And the
com
answer
recursos
from
hídricos,
point of view of water resources is very simple. It depends.
depende.
It actually
A região
depends.
tem muita água,
If the region is plentiful of water and has very little availability for solid waste management, the China porcelain cup would be a great solution. If it's the other way around, if the region has no water but has the means to dispose of solid waste, maybe the plastic cup would be a better solution. So in wrapping, I think, Ricardo, I'd like to hear about your final thoughts in today's topics. I would like to thank hundreds of people who have joined us, who are watching us. And before I close the session, I want to thank all our sponsors, ABES, Guia, Suez, Ana, AIGEA, SEDAI, e Guaço Saneamento. Ricardo, the floor is yours. Absolutely, thank you. First and foremost, Joe, I want to thank on behalf of Ana Paula Rogers because she's the person who actually made this discussion available. So, Ana, thank you so much for organizing this communication 7 IT and engagement. And Joper, first thing, I'm very happy to have heard so many things to learn and heard from Ione, from Eniali, from Karini, you speaking of this topic, learning, because sustainability is an old but new topic. That is a true. It was an accessory kind and society as a whole. So, regardless if you're a bank or a retailer or if you're university or science, in a way, we're all together. It is I am going to look at some initiatives that was mentioned. Like Ione spoke about the platform. The platform began to help right in the beginning of the pandemics with the support by Sabesp and DIA. And it turned into a sustainability platform with social impact. And we are very happy. Now we have the solidarity involvement of Brazil Warsaw Week, because it is a way for us to integrate communities, learn about their reality, and bring not only hygiene materials, but also very information. I'd say at this point we are at cooperation mode. This topic is not only something that is being explored by companies, but also companies, employees, consumers, and at the financial market. And so it is up to us to actually have more discussions like this and think of what ways we can join forces to drive this topic forward. So I would like to thank all of you. I am available. I look forward to seeing all of you very soon again. Ricardo, we thank you. We thank you for participation and your enthusiasm, your drive. You founded Great Global Echo. And for us at ABES, you are first-rate stakeholder. Maybe you should have Damon in one of our events that shall have in the future.
Diga.
I want to learn more about it. Oh, I was going to wear this Matt Damon face mask. They would have been perfect because you're so Matt Damon now. Now let's hear from Ione. And then I just would like to inform the Eniali's last connection. Let's see if she can join us before we finish. Ione, your final comments before we wrap the session. Thank you. Thank you very much. I just would like to say goodbye, saying a bit of a cliffhanger. Okay. I've got a bit of a cliffhanger because myself and several other colleagues who are here present, we've been speaking so much on how to take this step forward and try and lead this awareness and really foster this discussion, really going beyond our screen, our Zoom screen in a very democratic manner and very ample manner. So I'm thinking we're working in such an exciting, thrilling project that slowly will, I will say, will be announced to the world. So please follow us, keep up to date, keep your ears open so you learn more about it. Because we're constantly engaging, we think hard about these things, and we want to take a step forward to make it all happen. Thank you again for the invite, for the opportunity, and to everybody who's here with us. Thank you. I'm very grateful. Thank you so much, Joper, for facilitating this session. Absolutely. Thank you, Ione. It's a pleasure to be with you. You just mentioned that you will be back to Uruguay. You will be flying back to Uruguay. So I wish you a good trip, good flight. You're from Rio. Rio keeps beautiful. The Christ has open arms to receive you, to welcome you back to Rio. Now, because Ricardo, you come from the financial sector, here we have a very interesting piece of information. When we started our encounter, I actually related to this because I'm an economist myself, but also as an accountant. I wasn't smart due to study engineering or law. I did accounting and law. As an accountant, I became an advisor at the Rio de Janeiro Municipality Council. And we have several obligations and roles in society, but we need more and more to place ourselves as a consultant, as advisor to these business people. So the social balance shouldn't be something harmful. It should be something that accountants can really encourage business people so they understand what is their social investment expression and their involvement with the third sector, so on and so forth. That's why the accountants trade association just created a special commission to deal exclusively, Ricardo, on sustainability. There's a special committee for sustainability. in order to make sure that this piece of information really permeates the complementation, so really to add to information that accountants advise to their client customers, so that accountants can become drivers of this information uh, enterprises that they service. Karina, I would like to pass the floor to you because we are agents, we're market agents. And as market agents like you banks are also market agents or stakeholders, financial stakeholders, you can make a major difference in society. So, Karina, the floor is yours. Undoubtedly, Joe. The point that Ione also brought to today was amazing. What do we see for advancement? The more integrated financial and non-financial aspects are, and in order to understand this as a whole, the better it is. So here's my invite. First and foremost, I would like to thank you for the invite, the effort, and my invite is that we have companies that know and learn more about the Global Pact, the Sustainable Development Goals by the UN, join forces from your sector with similar companies, because I think this pact becomes really a connector that links different stakeholders. And I think to find solutions together and answer and address several issues on our own is much harder. It's easier. There's a lot of potential to grow and join forces in Brazil. And sometimes we think of ourselves, we've got a bit of a complex, like an underdog kind of complex. But I think in the past 2 decades, Brazil has achieved very relevant new indicators. We're more effective in our actions and work in businesses. So I agree with Ricardo. I think we could be even further ahead in our transition. But I think in Brazil, we have so much potential to work on environmental issues. We have so many riches that when we think from the business point of view, we need to see this as a romantic agenda, but a very pragmatic agenda for success, for business success. Really make Brazilian business different. I am still very optimistic, Joe. Absolutely great. Listen, we still have time to explore this further. And our time enable us another 20, 25 minutes together. So, Ricardo, I would like to pass the floor back to you. Instituto Abraço. What the third sector in this work environment? What do you see?
I'll answer this one. I'd like to add to what Karini just said. She's completely right. Brazil has immense potential to make this happen. I think that we have all the necessary predicates. Europe truly does have advanced regulation, advanced companies. But here we can do it. I see the engagement in people. I know so many people that are so great to advocate for this. People who are in the government, people in associations. I do believe we have a lot of potential to bring all of our strengths together and move ahead. I participated in a webinar this week with the president of BlackRock Brazil, and I could see how strong Brazil is when it comes to this, how our companies are quite concerned about this. Joper, though there's a lot of wind here, could you ask me again a question from Instituto Abraço? The question is, what is your opinion on the third sector in this work platform? Well, the third sector is an integral part of it. I think that right now, Joper, we need to stop looking at that idea of the primacy of the shareholder. Companies need to provide a profit for the shareholder. Things have changed a little bit and they will change more and more. Currently, companies need to create an impact with all of its stakeholders, whether it's the shareholders, the consumers, the employees. And this is the way we need the companies will generate value and create a reputation and create value in the medium and long term. And the third sector is an integral part to all that. It is a strict stakeholder that maybe for the longest time did not have the required attention. But when we talk about embracing everyone the same way and taking advantage of everyone's potential as much as possible, the third sector is essential for it. I see a growth in its participation when it comes to sustainability. Our next few years will have it. If anyone wants to add to my answer, please go ahead. Please, Ione. Either Ione or Carini. I agree wholeheartedly to Ricardo. We have people that are quite active in this sector, and here in Brazil, this participation for the third sector is truly really important. Carini, would you like to add something? I think that we have two important issues here. The third sector has some knowledge in Brazil, and we are quite involved with the Amazon agenda as well. But in terms of local knowledge, use of technology, information, we work in Santander with rights councils from several cities that are far from the centers in Brazil. And we can see that both in execution and in terms of local knowledge and being close to the territory, the third sector is essential. And also when it comes to advocacy, we see there's opportunity to go through a social organization 4 years ago. So this is an important role in researching public policy, and this is essential. We can't do anything by ourselves. There's no dichotomy. We're all in this together. We need to have government, we need to have the private sector, we need to have the citizens and the third sector. When we look to the 2030 agenda, and it's looking towards this platform, but we are clear that this agenda only happens at this moment when everyone is looking towards the same direction. So we cannot exclude an important part of society and stakeholders from it. Since our topic is the two sides of the same coin, I feel comfortable of adding a few information as I've done so far, even though I'm the moderator. One item of information I'd like to add would be related to an intervention we had from Fausto Bessa, from the Association of Graduates from the War School. The War School has a doctrine and has courses that it provides to society, not only to members of the military, but to the society as a whole. And the Association of Graduates has courses that are provided for the entire society in Brazil. They are about strategic planning, so starting based on their doctrine, they discuss strategic planning for citizenship. This year, in Rio de Janeiro, DESC is including in their strategic planning course that is being developed right now. They're including the topic water and solid resources as a key point so people can be aware of how important this topic is, particularly in water resources, as part of defending the national sovereignty, as part of something that goes beyond simply goodwill or romantic ideals of some people. Another piece of information I'd like to add, we discussed the third sector. It is about an organization I'm part of. I was one of the governors of Rotary International, where we are involved directly in the application of resources throughout the world. And we do this particularly through an important instrument for financial funding. We are the Rotary Fund. We are the fourth largest investment fund for social projects in the world, and the Rotary Foundation has established around 8 years ago what we call focus areas. We have 6 focus areas. From 2021, these 6 focus areas will become 7 focus areas, and the 7th focus area where we will be applying our resources in humanitarian projects is sustainability. So Rotary is driving 1,250,000 volunteers, professionals, and business people to work in humanitarian projects that struggle for peace and understanding, guiding resources to a seventh focus area, which is the most important, sustainability and support to the environment. And interestingly, this piece of information seems quite relevant for what we are discussing. This focus area comes up after Rotary hired an advisory group to learn from Rotary members what were the priorities for investing resources. And these priorities were based on the 6 prior focus areas.
Enfim,
So, 6 relevant topics that we had. But this advisory decided to listen to what non-Rotary members wanted. They talked to people on all 5 continents, people who understood what was the role of Rotary in society and what these people expected from Rotary. And the predominant response, over 80%, was environment and sustainability. So, with the knowledge and the wisdom we have, instead of listening only to those who are part of it, we listened to the society as a whole and created that 7th area of focus. These are pieces of information I think are relevant to see that society is moving as well. And this is not something that is related to a few interested parties, but to all of us who are an integral part of nature being rebuilt. So us as human beings, as an integral part of society, we as companies, as organizations, it does not matter. These organizations are comprised of humans. Whether we're talking about Santander, DIA, all of our organizations are comprised of human beings. So we are all an integral part of Gaia. We're integral part of Pachamama, an integral part of this amazing being that we call Earth. This dear Earth, Mother Earth. Ricardo, Ione, Carini, thank you very, very much. It's 3:35. We had over 100 participants with us, and to each and every one of you, we would like to, on behalf of ABES, the Brazilian Association of Sanitary and Environmental Engineering, we'd like to thank you for your attention. Thank you very much for participating. Those of you who are watching us, you can also participate by asking questions via chat. And the video from this webinar will be available on this channel on the ABES website after it is over. So, I'd like to thank our sponsors once more: Sabesp, Mia, Suez, ANA, Aegea, SEDAI, Iguaçaniamento. I also like to thank Ricardo Assumpcao, founder of Grape GlobalECO, and Ione Mayon. She lost her connection, sadly. She's the executive director of DIA Supermarkets and University DIA. Ione Anderson, the director of policy, communication, and partnerships from the Inter-American Institute for Global Change Research, an Inter-American institute. And Carini Bueno, who's the head of sustainability at Santander, Brazil, and a counselor at Pacto Global, Global Pact at Ione. I'd like to thank people who provided support so that this webinar could see its course. I'd like to thank all of you in our audience. You can also register for the schedule from October 26 to October 30 with Brazil Water Week. The next special session will be tomorrow at 10 a.m. and the topic is monitoring and information on SDG 6, 6.3, 6.4, 6.5, 6.6, and 6.a, water resources. So thank you very much, and I'll see you soon. Our meeting is over. Thank you.
obrigado, Ricardo. Obrigado, Carini.
Obrigada.